Hello and good morning. I guess today let's talk about the shadow, or you can even call it the unconscious. I'm going to use the two words interchangeably in this context. I don't really differentiate the two, at least not right now. 'Cause they're kind of the same thing, at least when I talk about them. And it's very specific because the shadow is just something you're not aware of, but it's always there. So you can just say that's something you're constantly unconscious of that's already here right now. That's something you gotta go look for because it's already here. It's sort of really coming into contact with what's already here that you've been overlooking the entire time. And the simplest way to really get into contact with the shadow or the unconscious is through the body because we're not trying to fix or solve something that's only in the mind. That's where problems exist and where problems go to be solved is really all in the mind. But if we only have our attention in the mind, we're only focused on problems. What we're trying to focus on is what we're not aware of. And the mind can only be aware of thoughts and the self generated problems and ideas. So we can think of the shadow or the unconscious as really putting your attention back into the body on how it's tensing up, how the body is contracted and constricted. And the mind's a great tool to avoid the body. Because when you're in your head all the time, you can't really pay attention to your body. And being more conscious is being more conscious of your body and how you feel and how you move and what's trying to contract. What contracts isn't in your head. You can have thoughts about blockages, but the actual felt experience of what it's like to be really just contracted physically, that's something you feel. It's not really something you think about or figure out. So the shadow is just being unaware of your body and how it's contracting. You have to actually feel to get in touch with the unconscious. What part of you are you not feeling? What part of you are not completely engaged with? That part of your body. I can probably use real life examples because I guess you can say I'm a pretty shy person, maybe. I don't know. Labels are weird when you don't believe them. Like, you can still use them because you gotta talk. When you don't believe the label, it's kind of hard to communicate and believe it. But yeah, especially when I was shyer, I guess you can say. The normal one was just freezing up. Like, my shoulders would just not move when I would have to speak. I did not want to have any bodily movement. I tried to stay as physically still as possible. You can say that's me going unconscious to the body and not wanting to feel. Because the body naturally just kind of moves. If you forcefully stop it, it's contracted. That's going unconscious because I'm not feeling the body anymore. I'm back in my head trying to figure things out. And being more conscious is seeing that tension, especially right now as I'm trying to clam up. I don't know if this works well on camera, especially with my poor camera, but seeing the tension of not wanting to move, that's going unconscious because all my focus is in my head and trying to fix the problem mentally, as opposed to bringing attention to the body and letting it just very naturally relax. You don't gotta figure it out. When you're really in the body, it sort of just self corrects. Like, before, I would be too embarrassed to really move my head around like this, but when you're not afraid of your own body and feeling connected, it's not really a problem. to really move the body in a really natural way. It's not something I planned or figured out. It's just that's how the body wanted to move, to de-tense itself. It's really being more conscious of your body and just letting it flow naturally as opposed to having it constrict. Because what you're not aware of, you can't let it really flow and naturally correct itself. So really bringing light to the shadow is just bringing attention to parts of experience, your body, your sensations, and just letting them have that space to flow through you naturally. It's not something you really solve or figure out. Like, I don't really know what I just did, but it obviously just happened on its own. So it's not having better knowledge, more of just being open enough to let the very natural, spontaneous energy that moves around in you and all around you, everywhere, all at once. It really feels like there's no separation because that thing that's trying to control everything, that's that little sense of I or me, it really wants to have control. And to have control, you have to be able to know and control your own body. But when you let that go, you just sort of naturally move, and it doesn't feel like you're moving anymore. It doesn't feel like anything is acting on anything else. You can say that's non-separation, is that there's no independent force acting on another force. It's just everything moving all together simultaneously, and it feels effortless because there's no one guiding something. It's just natural and easy. Like a flowing river, it just flows naturally. Like there's nothing to obstruct it, it just happens. And if there's something in the river, it just moves around it naturally. There's no sense of I gotta fix this problem. It's automatic, spontaneous, fully conscious. And that's a really clean version to talk about the shadow or the unconscious. It's just really bringing attention, not a correcting attention, like I gotta fix this, more of a very loving, very caring, very curious type of attention into what in the body's being contracted. The mind's a really useful tool, but that's what it is. It's not who you are or what you are, but it is a tool. It's a tool that really tries to save you because contracted energy can be very painful. And the mind really believes it can fix or avoid pain or contraction. But what it's doing is just contracting even more, and it doesn't even know that. And it's something you really have to be willing to dive into yourself. And I'm not going to say it's going to be painless. It really will be painful, especially in the beginning, especially when there's an aversion to pain. It feels unbearable at times, but I can I am willing to say it gets to the point where pain isn't a problem, and instead of being unconscious to your own pain, there's a gentleness, and that gentleness isn't afraid of being in pain because it knows it has to feel the pain in order for the pain to let itself go. And then there's no more resistance to pain, and you don't suffer because there's pain. You don't even suffer when there's contraction. And this really isn't for the faint of heart because I know how painful it can be, which is also why I'm not one who's going to advocate going in if you don't feel comfortable with it. It is painful and it hurts. But if you're willing, I'm willing to assure you, you'll be okay. But I also feel responsible in saying it is going to hurt. It's going to be some of the worst pain you've ever felt. But on the other side, really feels like there's just no problem fully inhabiting your body and fully inhabiting your very natural life, your natural wants, your natural desires, your natural movements, and just your willingness to live. Because when you're in your body, you really want to live. And instead of being afraid of death or being afraid to live, you're willing to live because it feels good to feel complete and unafraid of every bit of energy that you've never known you had. Because being connected is being connected to this energy that moves very naturally. It's an energy that has no judgment because it's not a product of the mind. An energy that's very much alive. It has no opinions, doesn't really speak, and yet it moves quite naturally with no guidance. Thank you, and take care.